I really feel like I'm not understanding this verse correctly. If this is this what Jesus meant for us?
Wait, are you
Like,
telling me you didn't go run out and buy an AR-15 so you would be ready? I mean, it's biblical. Scripture's there to back you up, my friend,
yeah,
right?
okay,
I'm sure
that's
that's
what
what
that.
Jesus meant.
You've heard it said, let the conversation begin. You've heard it said, stay with us.
All right, Bill, here we go. Episode 12 of the You've Heard It Said podcast. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing well. How about you? I hear it's a little warm where you are.
It was 105 today in Salt
Oof.
Lake City,
Oof.
and Alexa told me it's going to feel like 108.
Wow.
And
Give you an
I
extra
was
3
like,
degrees.
yeah, what the heck? It has been roasted, man. I thought about actually filming this podcast naked, but we'd need a whole new platform if we
Well,
went
and
that
there's no
direction.
way I'm paying for the therapy that's going to be required for that. So, yeah.
Yeah. So here we go. I'm in the basement. AC's on.
Good.
And here we go, episode 12. We should start with the most important question of the evening, which
Yes.
is, as usual, what are you drinking tonight?
So tonight it is a drink that we discovered on a cruise ship. It was called Rock Bottom. And interestingly, like, a lot of times there's a lot of different bars on cruise ships and stuff, but this was only served at one of the bars. You couldn't get this at any other bar. You only go to this one. But anyway, it is 2 parts tequila, 1 part lime juice, 1 part simple syrup, right? So far, 1 part triple sec. So far sounding just like a margarita, right?
Okay.
But then
yeah.
it's 1 part creme de violette, which is different, and then some orange bitters. And so anyway, yeah, Rock Bottom, it's it was kind of a favorite of ours, but it was really out of the way we had to go to just this one bar that had it. So anyway,
Was the bar at the bottom of the boat? Like
it was in the
40?
casino. In the casino. And so,
Okay.
but here's the other bad thing about that, right? So for cruise ships, their casinos can only be open when they're not in port.
All right.
And so
right.
that bar was only open when they weren't in port. So anyway, but no, it was really, really, so I was able to copy it here. And and the other thing that, okay, you wouldn't even know that this has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about. But the thing that made it, what my wife really liked about it is that they would rim the glass with beet sugar, which is red. It's made from beets and it's very
You had
sweet.
me, dude. You had me. I was in on the Rock Bottom drink until the beet sugar.
No,
I don't know.
it's just like sugar. I remember sugar beets, right? That's what anyway, so it would rim it, but it was a red rim. And so
Okay.
anyway, so yeah, I didn't do that. I'm not as if I were serving
Committed.
this to my wife, I absolutely would have had to
Okay.
do that. But I for me, I'm just okay with the drink. So,
I know. There we go.
and what are you drinking?
I'm drinking straight whiskey.
Straight. Must have been a tough week, right?
No, I had a buddy over, and he's a big bourbon guy, a big whiskey guy. He actually belongs to a club, and it's like all these guys that get together once a week, and they drink like fancy whiskeys, and they talk about all these different flavor profiles and everything. And I thought, I need a club like this. But he came out to visit me, and so he was teaching me about whiskey and about bourbon, and we picked up this bottle. It's kind of cool. So this is a Maker's Mark, and it's called the Private Selection.
Mm-hmm.
And so Maker's Mark has this program where you can buy your own barrel, like a
no
full
kidding.
barrel, and then you pick the staves. That's what they call these little things here that go in the barrel, and each stave gives it a unique flavor profile. So some of the staves like vanilla or cedar, or like, they kind of have honey and these different like flavors, and that helps make the flavor. So this one is actually like the state of Utah.
Okay.
Because all of our liquor here, you can only buy through the state liquor store.
Right.
But the state liquor store decided to make their own private bottle.
Really?
So
No kidding.
if you're on the hunt, it's not in every state liquor store, but in select,
Okay.
Utah state liquor stores, you can find the Utah version of it. And
So what
it's
are you
actually
discerning in terms of like the different flavors from those? What are you tasting?
okay. So my buddy says you can get 3 full flavor profiles from every whiskey. You get like the front nose, you get the mid flavor, and then something on the back end, right?
Okay.
And for me, I don't know. I definitely could taste like some honey and cinnamon in there, and then it kind of has a spicy finish to it in the end. But
Okay.
it's pretty darn good. Now, the other thing that's interesting is these come out at cask strength, and so you never really know what your proof is going to be.
Oh.
It kind of varies from barrel to barrel, whereas
Mhm.
your standard whiskey that you buy, they cut down to a flat, proof. But
Okay.
this one came out at 109.5 proof.
Proof?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So it's
55% alcohol.
about 55,
Whew.
55%. So it's
Okay. Well,
it's a strong one.
yeah, this will be an interesting episode.
Don't worry. I'll milk it. I'll milk it down slow. But back to the episode at hand. Thank you for bearing with us, listeners, as we geeked out on our alcoholic beverages for the last 5 minutes. But more importantly, what are we talking about in this episode? And we are revisiting a Bible verse that I'm not going to come right out and say that Bill sandbagged me with this Bible verse. That would be unfair to Bill. But I think I might say quickly that I was unprepared for when this got brought up in one of our last episodes. And I've been chewing on it. I've been chewing on it for the last month. And so I wanted to look at it again. And the verse I'm talking about is Luke chapter 22, verse 36. So let me read it to you, Bill. You'll quickly remember this one. It says, Jesus is speaking, and he's speaking to the disciples, and he says, "But now, if you have a purse, take it, and also a bag. And if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. It is written, and he was numbered with the transgressors, and I tell you that this must be fulfilled in me. Yes, what is written about me is reaching its fulfillment." And the disciples said, "See, Lord, here are 2 swords." All right, so they pull out these 2 swords. Okay, so been thinking about this.
And Jesus said that was
Okay, yeah,
enough.
we go the conclusion. Okay,
No, he said 2 swords was enough. We didn't need,
he
didn't
goes,
need to
he
sell
says,
their
"That's
coats and
enough.
get any more.
That's enough."
Right?
That's how it
Right.
ends. Yeah, that's enough.
Yeah.
All right, so I've been really contemplating about the theology of this verse, and I've shared it with some other pastors that I know, and I felt inspired to buy you a gift. So I sent this gift all the way to Tennessee. Let's see, we're going to open it live on the show right now.
And it is still sealed.
All right.
You asked me not to open it, and I didn't
Yeah,
open
Bill
it.
has no idea what he's opening.
No idea.
here.
Yeah. A shirt. So I'm going to read it first.
Yeah, read it, Bill. What do we got here?
There we go. I've got the same thing.
All right. And
Perfect.
so it's the verse we've been talking about. But
Okay.
what stands out about this shirt?
Well, the AR-15 and the 45 semi-automatic pistol, and then the cross right above it, right?
Right above it. Yes.
Yeah.
Very, very, very American.
Absolutely.
So I don't
Need a
know.
flag.
Maybe some of our listeners are going to love this shirt. You can get it on Amazon, obviously. But so I was actually talking about this verse with another friend of mine who's in ministry, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's the verse we all use around here when we want to talk about buying our guns." And he's a big gun guy, has assault
Wow.
rifles and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
So they're actually using this passage to justify arming up, getting their
Right.
weapons, right?
Right.
And this just continued my thought process on this. Like, I really feel like I'm not understanding this verse correctly. If this is this what Jesus meant for us?
Wait,
Like-
are you telling me you didn't go run out and buy an AR-15 so you would be ready? I mean, it's biblical. Scripture's there to back you up, my friend, right?
Yeah, okay.
I'm sure that's what Jesus meant.
That's what that must be. And many would say it. I was on the verge of saying this. The last conversation we had, I was like, well, I guess you should defend your family, and I was like half a step away from, let's go buy an AR. And I don't want to get too lost in the weeds on the, like Second Amendment, should we have weapons and all of this, but I want to go back to the text. Is this what really this passage is talking about? Or is there something else going on here? So I should have done this in the beginning, but I went to one of my favorite commentaries. It's the New American the NAB, New American Bible Commentary. Let me read you what they said in here on this passage. It says, the exact interpretation of this verse is uncertain. It is clear that a new situation is envisioned. The disciples would soon encounter greater opposition and even persecution. The reference to the purchase of a sword is strange, right? Nice. Way to tee it up there, Mr.
Yeah.
Commentator. Attempts to interpret this literally as a zealot-like call to arms, however, are misguided and come to grief over the saying's very strangeness. Understood as a call to arms, this saying not only does not fit Jesus' other teachings, but radically conflicts with them. Also, if 2 swords are enough for war with the legions of Rome, then war was certainly not what was envisioned, right? I think you actually mentioned this last time we talked about it. Like there's 13 of you and you have 2 swords and that's supposed to be enough. In context, the word sword here is best understood in some metaphorical sense as indicating being spiritually armed and prepared for battle against the spiritual foes. So the desperate need to be armed for these future events is evident by the command to sell one's mantle, for this garment was essential for staying warm in the evening. All of that to say is we've been in our church going through the Gospel of John, and in John this verse is not in there. It makes sense that Luke would cover it because Luke is the pencil pusher, gets every detail right kind of guy, you know. So he's like, actually, Jesus said there, got to get our swords. So Luke includes it, but John doesn't. But all that said, the context is Jesus is concerned for them. He knows what's coming for them. In the Gospel of John, he's constantly talking about the world is going to hate you. Be ready. I'm praying for your protection. You know, Jesus is envisioning not only Peter's betrayal, Judas's betrayal, but probably the martyrdom of all of the disciples to come. And so I really, in hindsight, don't think that this passage is about arming yourself against enemies at all. I think on a reread, when I read Jesus saying that's enough, he's actually probably shocked that they had swords at all. And I hear almost like you guys missed the whole point in this conversation. It's not about arming yourself in any way. So like personally, I probably can't even wear this shirt in public, except on the podcast. We can rock these. But so I just kind of want to do a 180 on that and say I've reconsidered. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? Are you still in the same camp, or have you wrestled with this passage in the same way? Where are you at with this one, Bill?
So when I've thought about this passage, I've thought about this whole time. And if you look at the other Gospels, at this particular period in time where Jesus is seeing what's going to happen, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's during this time when he brings the disciples up to the Mount of Olives and he goes and prays and he comes back and they're sleeping and he's so disappointed they're sleeping because they have no idea what's coming, but he totally knows what's coming, right? And then I think it's in Matthew where he talks about he had like sweat like blood coming off, like it was such a tumultuous time, right? And one of the things that as Christians we're taught is that that Jesus was fully God, but fully man, right? He was both of those things at the same time. And so at this particular, at this time for him, I shared this with you earlier, but it's interesting to me that here Jesus has been living with these guys for 3 years and he didn't know they had 2 swords, whether they were swords or knives or whatever they were, but he didn't know they had any. But I do feel like Jesus was calling them to have one because he knew something was about to happen. And certainly with him saying, well, 2's enough, it's like, well, you're not going to take on much of an army with 2, right? But so in my mind, I see it as maybe he wanted to either defend his disciples whom he loved or, from this whole thing. And I think we're seeing Jesus's human side. So fully God, but fully man. And so he's dealing with those same emotions that you and I might deal with if we knew what was going to come, which he knew what was going to come. And so he's happy with 2. So apparently he thought that was enough. But then on the flip side, later when he's confronted with the people and Peter actually takes the sword and cuts off the ear, Jesus tells him to stop, put it away, and he heals the ear, right? And I think we see the return of Jesus' God side, right? And I think at that point he had a clear view of what he had to go through, and perhaps the Holy Spirit had prepared him for what he had to go through. So I I've always viewed that comment that, when Jesus tells them to buy that we're just seeing part of God's human side. I'm not that's not sin. What he was doing wasn't sin. But anyway, that's
Yeah,
I can't take away from the fact that he did ask them to buy a sword.
yeah, but I mean, like the commentary I had called it completely metaphorical. So
Well, then
that's
when they said we have two swords, why did he say that's not enough instead of saying, you idiots, that's not what I'm talking about?
well, he basically does say that.
He said two's enough.
He goes, "That's enough." No, I'm not kidding. Like my
So-
commentator reference some other examples, and he basically says he's blowing him off at this point.
Okay.
Okay, here's what it says. Clearly, two swords were not enough for any planned armed resistance. Jesus' words are best understood as breaking off further conversation. And then he references Deuteronomy 3:26. And he goes, enough of this foolish talk, I guess is that reference. And so he sees in Jesus saying that's enough, like an equivalent to you idiots missed it.
Okay.
Which is exactly what you would say if it was metaphorical. But I don't know. I think the commentator's probably reading into it a
You
little
think?
bit here. Well, the conversation does die right after this.
Well, that's
You
because
know.
he's satisfied that he told them to buy one sword and they had two. So they met the criteria.
Oh my word. Wait a minute. What? No. Okay, what did he say? He says to them, if you now have a purse, take it, and also a bag. And if you don't, have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. He's speaking to all of them. I mean, at a
Right.
bare minimum, you would think 13 swords, 12 swords, right? 2 swords? Who doesn't get a sword then? Obviously Judas. Let's not give that guy a sword. And Thomas, we know we don't give him one because he's not going to have the fortitude to swing it. Peter, that guy's wielding it all day long. Let
Right.
Peter have it.
Yeah.
John's too soft. He's, maybe the Sons of Thunder, maybe those guys.
Well, we know Peter had one of the two, right?
That's right.
So it could have been one of the other sons of
Andrew.
thunder. That would have made
Andrew,
sense.
yeah.
So
Okay, but again, I want to go back to what you're saying. You're talking about Jesus in his human state versus Jesus in his divine state, and I don't know if I could disagree with you more here because I don't think you can just split the states of God and like one moment he's in his human state, one moment he is fully God, fully man all the time. When is he not fully God? When is he not fully man? He's always both. And so I just think that's a slippery slope to try to dissect things he said and say, oh, well, he said that in his God form and this in his human form. Like, no, Jesus is the divine representation of what perfect humanity should look like, as much as that might challenge us to understand what he meant or said. Yeah.
well, I mean, so clearly he was in his human form when he didn't know that they had two swords already.
Well, because he didn't exercise his divine.
Yeah, if he's God all the time, then he should have
omniscience.
known how many swords they had. I mean, they've already, they should have done that accounting, 3 years ago. What do we got? Oh, we got a couple swords, this much money and stuff.
That's a rabbit hole we're going down here.
Well, I'm
Where
just
did
saying, I mean,
Paul-
so
Paul wrote
why
it-
are we so hesitant to give? I mean, here's the thing. Jesus knew what it was to go through temptation because he was fully human, right?
Correct.
And he knows exactly how hard it is for us to overcome sin. Why? Because he was fully human. So he experienced those temptations and his response was, obviously godlike. But how could he not experience the emotions and just, I mean, I can't even describe the emotions, right? But just imagine, that you're going to have to endure probably torture, certainly dying in the most terrible way possible. I mean, it was prophesied that he would die on a tree in the Old
Yeah.
Testament. And I'm sure he knew what that meant. And if I mean, I can't imagine the emotions that I would be feeling and might, maybe drive my response to a certain degree. I don't think asking for a sword is sinning in any way. But I think the time that he spent in prayer between the time he tells them to get a sword and the time he then heals the person's ear, that he then realized he's strengthened by the Holy Spirit to go through with what he knows he has to do. But you obviously don't agree with that. But did he experience those emotions like you and I would have if we knew what was coming?
Oh my gosh. Why is this one so tough for me to get my hands around? Yeah, man. So before, while at dinner, he's like, get a sword. Then he goes that night and prays, has this revelation, and you're saying the next day he's totally like Zen
Not the
mode.
next day, that
It
night.
was the next.
It's
Oh,
that
well,
night.
okay, that night. Yeah, that night. So
Right,
later that
exactly.
night, not even like a few
Right.
hours later, and he's like, "Actually, guys, put the swords away. I know.
Well, I mean,
Hang up
why?
the ARs. Put them back on the shelf, boys."
So why do you think Peter pulled the sword?
Well, of
What do you
course,
think drove?
Peter pulls the sword.
Yeah, but that's because he had just been told by the Messiah that to go buy a sword.
Really? So okay. So it was God. It was Jesus's fault. Peter cut the guy's ear off.
He was following directions.
Oh my gosh. He misunderstood. He misunderstood. Yeah, no. Okay. No. I'm not with you. I'm not. Let me give you a quote.
Okay.
I found another quote this week. It was helpful for me. It probably
Okay.
won't get you there, but I'm still going to read it.
Okay.
Kelly Brown Douglas wrote a book called Stand Your Ground: Black Bodies and the Justice of God. And she talks a lot about racism, about violence in this book. And she uses a term that I don't think I use enough. And I want to use the term pacifism, but she actually pushes away from that and uses the term nonviolence and makes a distinction here. So she says, it's a little bit of a long quote, but I'll try to get through it quick. Through the resurrection, God responds to the violence of the cross, the violence of the world, in a nonviolent but forceful manner. It is important to understand that nonviolence is not the same as passivity or accommodation to violence. Rather, it is a forceful response that protects the integrity of life. Violence seeks to do another harm, while nonviolence seeks to rescue others from harm. It seeks to break the very cycle of violence itself. That God could defeat the unmitigated violence of the cross reveals the consummate power of the nonviolent, life-giving force that is God. I think she nails it, because I've always wrestled with passivity. Part of me wants to see in Jesus total passivism, and yet something about that feels forced. But when she talks about nonviolence as not the same as passivity, but rather an intentional overcoming of violence, I think she nails it. So that's what I see in the person of Christ. I think he's communicating that in this passage, and I think he communicates that with Peter, and he communicates that through the cross and the resurrection. All the way across the board, I see a God who emphasizes nonviolence over violence.
So we just dismiss that verse and provide an out for how we might interpret that if we took it literally.
No, because even the sword can, oh Lord, like a dog with a bone, Bill.
No, I'm just saying it's one thing. It's like he says, sell your coat and get a sword. And then if it's something that we're uncomfortable with in terms of how we see Christ, then we try and we take away from what it means at face value and try to explain it away to a certain degree so that it matches what we think Jesus should be.
That's reductionist. There are times, I think, when we have to weigh certain difficult phrases against the whole of Scripture. So in this case, let's weigh this statement of Christ against the character and life of Christ. Because you're wanting to force it by saying, well, he was fully human here, and in the other places he was acting in his divine nature, and that's when he was really pacifistic. But in this instance, he was human and he wants to defend the ones he loves. Even that, I think, is a kind of a cop-out, rather than simply saying, well, maybe we don't understand what he meant. Because when you look at all the other examples for Jesus, we see someone who does perpetuate nonviolence over violence. The exceptions are this verse and when he overthrew the tables, the money changer tables. But
Right.
the rest of his life is one of nonviolence.
And that's absolutely
overwhelmingly
true.
So.
But this is the one time in his life where I could see him being overwhelmed with emotion, knowing what was going to happen in the next 24 hours, right? I mean,
folks,
he wasn't facing that, in year 1 or year 2, but now he's facing it. So anyway, I just think I'm okay. I don't know. I guess it's like, we want to say Jesus was fully God, but fully man, but we don't want to allow him any room to respond in a human way. Now, again, we see his initial response is to get a sword, but then after he goes through that night, he's praying, he's doing all these things, then he changes. I mean, his approach changed. I mean, if you don't dismiss him saying he really did want a sword, if we say that he really meant what he said when he said sell a coat and we need to have a sword or two, If we believe that's what he really meant, then when somebody actually pulls the sword and uses it, he says, no, that's not what we're about. We're not going to respond that way. So I guess it all comes down to how you want to interpret his words when he said, sell your coat and buy a sword. Did it mean something else? If it did mean something else, I think I could understand the disciples' confusion over that, why they didn't get it.
Well, they were always confused. So,
well, and they'd been with him for 3 years, right? I mean,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
they'd have probably a
And
more
I
accurate
think
insight
I
than
am
me.
comfortable. I am comfortable saying it meant something different, because I think you look at the other 4 gospels or the other 3 gospels, what they take away. They don't even mention the sword,
Right?
but
Yeah.
they're talking about, hey, be ready. Persecution is coming. Prepare yourself. The world is going to hate you. Harder days are ahead. That's, to me, the stronger message across the New Testament scripture we have versus this one verse about getting a sword. So, yeah, I really don't think it's literal in this case. But that's what makes this podcast interesting, Bill. We don't always agree. So I know we have a handful of listeners these days. And hey, listen, wherever you found us, if you found us on a podcast, if you're watching us on YouTube, if you found us on TikTok, however you found us, leave some comments. Let us know who you think is right. Maybe just put Team Bill in the comment or Team Jared, or maybe put like, hey, I'm buying my AR. Wherever you're at, we'd love to hear from you. We're dying on the vine over here looking for some interaction, because some of the comments we get on our podcast are rather off the wall. But if you've listened this far, thanks for tuning in. This has been another interesting episode 12. We enjoyed having you guys, and we will see you again next week. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.